Just a minute past 8 o'clock. A very good morning to you and welcome to K24 this morning. My name is Jeff Motte. As always, if you're joining us for the first time, we take a look at the big stories of the day, look what you're waking up to across your dailies, and then just dig a bit deeper into the current issues that are affecting us either politically, economically, or socially as well. Now, one thing is for sure, we are living in unprecedented times. We have a process that is supposed to bring the nation together that, ironically, has caused more division in the political class. Now, the political rhetoric around this has also caught the attention of both the National Assembly and the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Key in this conversation is a narrative that's doing rounds in public discourse. The hustler and the dynasty divide, whose proponents say speaks to the issue of social inequality. So, how do you have this conversation without tearing the country's social fabric apart? It's all about political narratives 101 on K24 this morning. But first, the newspaper headlines. Let's see what you're waking up to as far as your dailies are concerned. Very quickly, before we get to my panel and the conversation, front page of the PD, why KEMSA lords will still pocket 6.2 billion Kenya shillings. Let's scroll down on this. As you can see, anger in the Assembly from this revelation. Solicitor General, gov't tells National Assembly Committee the government's hands are tied and that much as the COVID-19 tenders were illegal, they have to pay the suppliers in accordance with the law. We have lawyers in studio who can give us some analysis on this and where it stands as far as that's concerned. Let's talk about the BBI process and see where it stands at this particular point. Siaya being the first county to give a big okay on that. This story on page 9 of Your People Daily. Siaya MCAs the first to pass and approve the BBI proposals. The bill now requires 23 more assemblies to endorse it, and then the country can go to a referendum. This is on page 9 of Your People Daily. And also what we're talking about in terms of unprecedented times we're living in. Former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko stares at 30 days in custody over terror charges. It seems like when it rains, it pours, and especially in this particular case of former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko. You can get the details of that particular story right there, even as we talk about that. The front page, rather, the top part of that particular page. Anniversary being marked, how Moi prepared family for his afterlife. This story can be found on page 5 of Your People Daily. And it's also quite a pertinent story to read as you look at what's also on page 6. What made Nyachai not to forgive Raila, a close confidant of the fallen Ford People leader, opens up on his fabulous wealth, fears, and a personal political betrayal that he will take to his grave. Of course, even as we look at the life and times of the late Simeon Nyachai, you can find that story on page 6 of your PD. And don't forget, you can get your PD straight to your phone. It's only 10 shillings, and the number that you dial is star 550 star 4 hash. Get it straight to your phone, courtesy of the People Daily and Safaricom. Let's see what you have now on the front page of Your Daily Nation. Sonko staring at long prison term. State is determined to put him behind bars, and whether Mike Sonko, a politician who, let's scroll up on this, beat all odds in his way to the top before tumbling down, has finally run out of the proverbial 9 lives. And of course, we'll see what happens in the coming days as far as this particular case is concerned. That story making front and center in your copy of Your Daily Nation this morning, even as it stands at this particular point in time. That's what you have on the Standard now. Inside state's plan to tame politicians. They're calling it an all-out war on this particular issue. Alarmed by rising tensions, government rolls out multi-agency strategy to stop inciters in their tracks. As you can see right there, those are key in this from Interior CS Fred Matiang'i, NCIC Chair Samuel Kobia. We have the Security Committee chaired by Paul Koinange and the IG of the Police, Hilary Mutyambai, putting a concerted effort in trying to tame this particular speech that's going around, and that's actually part of the discussion this morning. You can find this story in your copy of your Standard as well, as they dig deeper into how these politicians will be tamed. That's what you have on the Star now. Front page of the Star, as you can see right there. Sonko locked up in committee to face terror charges. Ex-governor facing multiple charges from corruption to robbery with violence as well. You can find this story on page 2 of your Star this morning. Right next to that, Raila's base sets pace in BBI battle of numbers. Of course, this after Siaya backed this particular process and gave it an approval with the amendment bill. 23 more, they are saying, and it's a game of numbers. And you can find the story on page 4 and 5 of your Star. Finally, let's see matters economy and what the Business Daily is reflecting on. Rich Kenyans triple dollar deposits in pandemic era. High net worth investors and companies traditionally hoard cash during crisis. This is no different as far as that's concerned. And as you can see right there from their savings as far as this is concerned. And this data in from the Central Bank of Kenya, seeing that these particular high net worth individuals and companies tripled the deposits in foreign currency as far as that's concerned. You can get details on this story in your copy of your Business Daily. That story can be found on page 4 indeed. So that's what you're waking up to as far as your dailies are concerned this morning. But right here in studio, we're talking about Political Narratives 101. How do you have the hard, honest conversations without tearing the country's social fabric apart? We'd love to hear from you as well. You can get me at I am Jeff Morte. Welcome to K24 this morning. Welcome back. Of course, very quickly get to my panel, both within studio and without. In studio, we have lawyer and political analyst Oliver Karori. Good morning, Oliver.
Morning.
Yes. Karibu sana. Welcome to the show.
Asante.
Asante for making time. You are making a couple of comments about our matching coats. Was it? Right before you went on.
I'll preserve my comment.
Thank you so much for making time. Of course, also we have the Youth League of Jubilee Chair in studio as well, Mr. Solomon Kuria. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Thanks for making time as always, Solomon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Also joining the conversation via video link, we have Millie Luanga. She is a governance expert. Good morning, Millie. Millie, you need to unmute your microphone. Tafadhali.
I did.
There you go. Morning, Millie.
Morning. How are you?
Very well.
And good morning to the panelists.
Fantastic. Many thanks, and thanks for being on the panel. So right before we get to Political Narratives 101 and where this stands, I want us to take a quick look with the headlines right now and matters right now speaking to what's happening in the corridors of justice and the law. Let me start with one lawyer in the room. For some people trying to understand where this lies, because when Kenyans wake up to this headline, Oliver, surely they're wondering, how can we still pay this money, yet the whole country agrees procedures weren't followed. Here there's a glaring question, but we still have to pay. What recourse do we have in getting this money back?
Actually, Jeff, when you discuss issues about COVID or the KEMSA whole thing, there is always a question I always ask. Who declared COVID an emergency? Because before you do an emergency procurement, there must have been a declaration that it is an emergency. You remember, most people don't understand why we always ask the president, declare something a national disaster. Because it is in that declaration that there are laws that will follow in place. But be it as it may, when you look at the discussion around COVID, KEMSA, and the procurement that was done without proper planning or due recourse, the thing that comes to play is that the issue why the money will be paid is not about procedure. It is about who did the supplies. It is this COVID whole saga or the KEMSA saga that somebody said I saw people milling around KEMSA. When I passed there, I got a tender of 600 billion. Such are the stories and such is the country we live in. But at the end of the day, what we must always ask ourselves is this. Why do we allow people to benefit from misfortune? Why do we commercialize problems? That is where we need to begin from. Okay. Two is an issue of a personal ethical question. And that is the discussion that goes towards the issue of why would we circumvent the law when everybody was at its weakest to come up with profits? Those are the discussions we need to have, because at the end of the day, I do not agree with the Solicitor General that we will have to pay 6.2 billion just because we did that. There are several things that can be done so that if, for example, Jeff, if you are not a pre-qualified supplier in KEMSA and we do not have a declaration of emergency by the president or by the requisite office holders, why will you come and pay this in a procurement that was regularly done, in a procurement that people just passed by and got tenders? What happens to issues of standards? What happens to issues of were these companies registered for this sole reason? because there is a difference. If Kipchumba deals in supplying those lab things, and I am pre-qualified, you can always send me a mail saying, give us your quotation on ABCD, or you send it to this gentleman asking them to give you your quotation. It was so easy. But the other thing, when this whole COVID thing was going on, there was another irregularity. You realize that there was a point where, I think it was the CEO or somebody who said, I received instruction from the PS on which companies to give. And I think it is in record in Parliament. So why will we allow Kenyans to shoulder for such? And my last point is this. We were told there are supplies that are lying idle in KEMSA. We have always asked, why don't we release those supplies for schools so that if there are masks, give it for free to our learners? That way, although the public will pay, we will have made good value out of this problem. And the other thing that I have to concede also is that during the COVID time, at the height of it, there was no standard price for anything. Because of market and the demand curve, you will not have sat and said a mask which ordinarily will be 10 shillings ought to have been sold at such, because you remember we were battling with everybody.
Right.
First of all, we did not have capacity to manufacture the mask here in the first instance. So I think when we are discussing this, we need to be alive to the fact that the only masks maybe that we used to have before COVID, we might not have consumed 1 million masks per year.
Okay, fair enough. Solomon, let me bring it to you as well, because there's the legal implication of what we are seeing when the Solicitor General gives his advisory. There's also the political implication of this as well, from where you stand, because it seems like it's another stain on, Jubilee's tenure in office, because, I mean, the youth who you lead as well, we talk about this particular period being the one where we paid companies that got this procurement, from what it seems irregularly, billions of shillings, surely.
I think sometimes back when Barack Obama was in Kenya, he told us sometimes democracy can be messy. Because I've read that story, and I just read one paragraph which says that the courts pronounced themselves on the matter and said that the suppliers must be paid, whether the tenders were awarded illegally or not. The suppliers have to be paid. And therefore, the government might find itself, paying this money. The question is, this time round, I would want to see the government maybe refusing to honor a court order for a good reason. If these tenders were awarded illegally and then we pay them, it therefore means that in future, anyone would get a tender illegally and seek payment. What are we telling our young people? That you can use your other hard deals, you can use your connections and illegally get tenders, and you will be paid at the end of the day. But also, having said that, I'm also alive to the fact that there are some people who could be innocent, some suppliers who could be innocent in this. They gave out their bid legally. They were awarded the tender. But unfortunately, there are some people who used some panya routes and got the tenders. Let us not put all of them in one basket. Let us handle the case by itself, each case in its own way, and find out who used the right channel and who did not. Those who used the right channel and they're just caught up in these circles of illegal awarding of tenders, those ones must be paid. But it beats the logic that you can pay someone who actually got the tender illegally.
Okay.
I wouldn't support that.
Okay, let me bring Millie in on this very quickly, Millie, before we get to our main conversation. I mean, front and center right now, it seems like this COVID billionaire story is one that could, if it goes down this route, leave a real sore spot as far as the country's conscience is concerned, that during a pandemic, when people are trying to save life and livelihoods, some people walked away with billions of shillings with what seemed an irregular process.
I think that one of the things we forget is that we have adequate that can deal with this issue. For example, there is nothing to stop the money being deposited in an account that can be accessed by advocates both sides. And then the matter is litigated very quickly before the courts, so that for those who obtained the tender without being aware of the fraud can be able to access their money. But for those who played a major part in the fraud, be denied a chance to benefit from their own. There's nothing to stop the government from being seen to be willing to adhere to the rule of law and to uphold the legal provision while protecting the stability of Kenyan taxpayers' money being misused and used by very clever persons who want to make money to the door. So I think that is game, and we see more seriousness in the ability of the government to deal with this issue because there are adequate laws.
I want us to look at this and move it and just switch gears even as a way to see how this pans out. They're calling it anger in the assembly. But I want us to take it to an issue of the day right now, which is Political Narratives 101. Front page of your Standard, they're talking about the state's plan to tame politicians. They say Interior CS Fred Matiang'i addressed a closed parliamentary committee sitting, revealed state's plan to block inciters from the 2022 elections. NCIC chair says they'll be named and shamed, those perpetrators of tension in the country, and threatened to block them as well from elective posts or public appointments. Let me come to you, Solomon, on this, because right now, when you look at this, we all know the conversation that has had the country pretty uncomfortable when it comes, and this is all about the hustler and the dynasty, and how do you qualify to be either of those classes, and where do we take this so that it doesn't become a class war? But even as you talk about Solomon, there is an issue there. When they talk about, hustlers or dynasties, they're talking about social inequality. How do you have that conversation?
I think there's something Raila Amolo Odinga stated sometimes in an interview. And sometimes I like him for being honest. He said, you see, this is the setup world over. Walk across any country in this world, including the huge democracies like America. They are the rich and the poor and the middle class. That is it. It is all over, everywhere. There are those people who control the economy of the world, and there are not many actually. Wow, of the world, not of a country. Then you walk into a country, you would still find the same. They are the rich people who control the economy of a country, and then they are the middle class, and then they are the poor. And the forces that lead to that, actually the economic forces, are there, and everyone can actually exploit the forces and be maybe among the top, the middle, or the lower. The biggest disadvantage is trying to use those social classes and set up, one social class against the other. Like what you're having today in Kenya, the hustler versus dynasty narrative. Today, the poverty index in Kenya, I think is about, it's over 50%. Which means we have so many people who live below the poverty line. Helping them is not telling them that you are poor because those above the poverty line took your resources, took your money, and all that. The best way to deal with poverty in Kenya is at the policy level. Those in government, let them come up with policies that will accommodate as many people as possible and alleviate poverty, but not inciting them for personal gains. If you look keenly, Jeff, you'll see, and the person who leads this war, I must mention him because it's known, is the deputy president who is running with the hustler narrative across the country. But what is the end game? For him, it is presidency. He really doesn't want to help these people, but he wants these people to help him rise to power. By 2022, if they elect him president, he will go to State House, and they will be left in their villages having helped him rise to power. What these people should be asking him is, we know we are poor, and we know you are rich. We know we are not in government, but we know you are in government. What do you have to offer to us? can you tell us, if we elect you the president, what are you going to do away with this poverty? That thing, the deputy president is not saying. Wherever he goes, he says, huyu mama mboga huyu, huyu mtu wa boda boda huyu, huyu sijui mtu wa baisikeli, huyu tutatengeneza na yeye serikali. And then an opportunity comes, like we were almost having a by-election in Nairobi. I did not see the deputy president walking to Marikiti market and maybe getting the chairman and telling him, Chairman, you have led these people for this number of years. Can you be my candidate for Nairobi gubernatorial race? I didn't see him going to the chairman of the Boda Boda organization in Nairobi and tell him, now, since you have been the chairman, can you now come and deputize this Marikiti chairman? I mean, it is conmanship. You tell people you're going to make government with them. I mean, are you saying that the next CS for interior will be a Boda Boda guy or a Mama Boga? Okay. No, you must tell people that these are the policies I'm going to come up with. And this is how I'm going to help millions of you guys who are poor. Not telling them, can you come and support me because I was poor and you are poor.
Let's have a rejoinder on that with Oliver on this, because it's an issue that has been brought up severally, that he's spoken about the fact that, and we've heard it across the political conversation, you can't help them with wheelbarrows, tell them what you can actually do for them to make a better tomorrow. How do you address this hustler narrative as you speak to them and actually empower them as you move forward? What's the tangible promise that can be given to these people who want a better economic life tomorrow?
Jeff, I have taken time to interact with the hustler narrative at a personal level. One, hustler, I have not heard the promoters of the word hustler saying it is us versus them. Mm-hmm. It is just part of misinformation. And Jeff, the right place to begin a conversation is always when we have options. William Ruto and his brigade are coming up with the hustler narrative. I have seen the position another one we call the wheelbarronomics. Mm-hmm. My question today to the other formations, Raila Odinga, Musalia Mudavadi, I have seen Musalia has something that called Uchumi Bora or something. We need now to start attacking these principalities, but we should not fear them. We should not come and sell fear. My point is this, Jeff. The idea about hustler nation is not that you are rich because I am poor. That is not the idea. The idea is there are people in the center who have made it impossible for people outside the resource center to access. Your voice has been diminished because of the people who have had a cling onto power. And the point is this, when they say a hustler will form a government, is that what a hustler wants is what will inform the next government. The other idea is this, in the last election, there was the issue of analog and digital. Did people fight because of that? Mm-hmm. Analog people are meant to be the old people. Digital was meant to be the Mbwegze generation and Mbogi Genje. Did people fight? The issue is this, when we talk about a hustler is a person. If today you began by being Jeff Mote, you are a news anchor here. We hope that in the next 10 years, you will own a small radio station somewhere. That is what it meant by hustling. The other thing is this, when you have discussed American politics, there is always what we call Washington insiders. We want somebody to come so that he can help us beat the people in Washington. The people in Washington are what we call now, we will call here the aristocrats or the dynasties. The people who have made it so hard for other people outside America to make it in life. Why? Have they made it hard? By rigging the trade, what we call the stock exchange, the trade and all other things. And even by making sure that even national policies or national priorities are targeted on war and other things because they want to sell their arms. Okay. That is what we mean at a bigger perspective. When we come back home here, my suggestion will be this, that let us not polarize principles of politics. Let us interrogate them.
I want us to, even before we get to our first break, because after the break I'll get to Millie on this one, but very quickly, Oliver, because an issue that had been brought up is before we had, the Deputy Governor of Nairobi, we wanted to see which candidates would be brought forth in there. And as Solomon has said, if it was a hustler narrative, you could have gone for the ordinary hustler and put them there. Why do you think that didn't work out? Because
the same problem that we have had in this country, the thinking that our problems will be solved by when we talk about hustlers, we are saying if you have owned, if you have been selling your wares in a gunia, get a wheelbarrow, sell them, push a wheelbarrow. We are not saying that you will push a wheelbarrow till you die. Tomorrow, buy a motorbike and then move to something else, move to a pro box. The other thing is this. We need to be realistic when discussing the by-election in Nairobi. It was occasioned by Article 181. An impeachment had been done. We had 60 days. If today you are to bring a hustler, let's say somebody from Marikiti, as my brother says, how will you sell him across within 60 days? Those are things that you need to do when with the election we are going. I think we need to measure the next election, the election we are going. The 2022 election,
Right, so
that is when
election,
we need to ask ourselves, UDA told us it is an Hustler party. Have they brought in Hustler candidates? Look at even the person, Jubilee, or the people who are being fronted by Jubilee. Anne Kagure and...
About Machakos.
And what was the name of the other good
And
guy?
Matungu.
The chairman of BBI.
not
So at the end of the day, some things are done in installments. Even when Britons left this country, we did not rule immediately after they left. There were things that had to be done. We are fighting an entrenched mindset. The mindset that your father must have been somebody for you to go somewhere. The mindset that we must say, what is your name? Jeff Mote. Who was Mote? That is the mindset we are fighting.
Okay.
It is an emancipation that begins by, first of all, acknowledging that we have a problem.
I want to take a break right there. You've really amused Millie, who's on Skype. We'll be coming back and getting right through her on this. Of course, we like it when you contribute to the conversation. You can get me at I am Jeff Mote or at K24 TV. It's all about political narratives 101, hustlers, dynasties. But there within, and you dig deeper, there is an issue that needs to be addressed. How do you have that conversation? That's what we discuss right here on the show. Back after the break.